wish everyone a Happy New Year, although it's a little bit belated, and let's hope we can have a peaceful New Year, because 2024 wasn't a very good year across the world. Right, I'd like to declare the meeting of the City Council open. This hybrid meeting is being conducted on a multi-locational basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act and the arrangements for multi-locational meetings agreed by the Council, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open, transparent manner. Please note, for those attending the meeting, is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcast by way of the Council's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. As you will see from the agenda items, generally the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and for training purposes. As well as being broadcast live, a recording version will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours after the meeting. For those members present in the Council chamber, please use their microphones to contribute to the meeting, and please remember not to get too close to the microphone and also to switch off the microphone when you have finished. For those attending the meeting remotely, can I request that you all switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise and to help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The Council standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this hybrid meeting. In the same way as the ordinary meetings, some members should conduct themselves accordingly. Also, members joining remotely are reminded that the use of the online chat function during the meeting is not permitted. For the benefit of everyone watching on live stream, when I invite members to cast their vote remotely on a particular item, they will do so electronically using the voting facility in the chat function. There will also be a slight delay before the voting facility appears on the screen, and the votes will be automatically counted and recorded on the system. But individual votes are not identified on the screen, and the chat room poll is not available for live stream for public viewing. Those members present in the Council chamber will vote in the usual way by a show of hands. A Welsh translation of the procedures can also be provided upon request. I have something else just to mention to people. There is an agenda items now that we are moving forward, and we are changing them. Okay, so I'll just go through them quickly, so they won't be on the agenda items that you've got in your book there, in your pack at the moment. Preliminaries, number 1, minutes, number 2, appointments, number 3, police issues and questions, number 4, questions to the Leader of the Council, that was number 11, is now number 5, Treasury Management, half-yearly monitoring, Council tax reduction, Review of Standing Orders, Governance and Audit Committee report, Notice of Motion, ban the release of helium balloons, the schedule of Council meetings, mayoral nominations, questions to Cabinet members and questions to committee chairs. Okay, that has been agreed, and I hope everybody is in favour of that. Right, if I move on to item 1, I have apologies from 2 councillors, Councillor Fairweather and Councillor Morris. Are there any other apologies? Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Thomas.
Pardon, presiding member. What was formerly item 11? Okay,
thank you. Right, I have no announcements to make at this present time. So I move to item 2 now, which is the minutes. The minutes from 26th of November to 2024 are before us. Are there any points of accuracy? I move them as a true record. Is there a seconder? Sorry, Councillor Druitt. That's... Oh, second, sorry, right, okay. I thought you wanted to speak on it. Right. Without we now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote now, starting with all those in favour? This on chat as well. There's none against. The approval of the minutes are duly carried. Item 3, appointments. Councillor Druitt to introduce this item.
I wish to make the following governing body appointments as on page 16 of the agenda. And in addition, Onway Primary School, resignation of Danielle Powell. I also want to make the following verbal appointments. Waste Savers, resignation Councillor Deb Davis, appointment Councillor Matthew Pym, and appointment Councillor Paul Bright. I ask that the Council approve these nominations.
All right. Can I invite Councillor Reeks to second the report?
Happy to second that, presiding member.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the report? We now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote now, starting with all those in favour? Are there any against? I don't think there is. So any abstentions? I therefore the number of votes cast. Therefore the appointment report is duly carried. Sorry about that. I move on now to item 4, and I wish to welcome Superintendent Jason White to the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. And apologies, I know there was no police attendance at the last meeting due to some last-minute operational commitments. So I think today I'll start off with just giving a bit of an overview in terms of some crime stats for the Newport area, so we can just digest some of the trends by crime type. So it is pleasingly some good news. So since July of last year to December, just before Christmas and up till the end of the year, we've seen an 18% reduction in overall crime in the Newport area. And January this month is on course for some further sizable reductions. Secondly, shoplifting. Shoplifting from between July and December has seen a 47% reduction in all retail crime offences in the Newport area, which is really sizable. And I think, I'd like to commend my teams, particularly around the retail crime team, for the way in which they're targeting prolific and known offenders, targeted hardening shops, dedicated patrol plans, and some crime prevention in the area as well, which all gone great lengths to get in those reductions in a really good place. And again, January is on course for another significant reduction. Dwelling burglaries, we've seen below average levels between August and October. We did see a spike in December, but pleasingly throughout this month we've dropped back down to below average levels, which is pleasing. And also for commercial burglaries, we've seen an increase certainly in August of up to 47 offences for the Newport area, which is quite high. But pleasingly, month on month, we've seen a 47% reduction since that time and through and into December. And again, June is on course for below average levels. Robbery, month on month reductions from July, which peaked at 22, down to 7 in November. And December and January are on course for below average levels. And then finally, weapons. So we've had some significant events over the last 6 to 12 months where unfortunately we've encountered the fatal stabbing in Maindy, the attempt murder, the other side of the water, and close to home in Pill as well, we had a stabbing on Commercial Road. What I would say in context, and there is always context to some of these things, in September we had a record high of 21 offences, not of knife-related incidents, but weapon offences, which includes knives. But that has gone down month on month to December, where we hit a low of 12. And again, January, we're hovering around the same levels at this moment in time. ASB, we've seen reductions in Pill, Bettis and Tredegar from November onwards. In the city centre, we've seen reductions. We've seen reductions in Allway, and we've seen reductions in Tredegar Park. That's not to say that these things don't affect people's quality of life, because they do, and it's important that we understand the perspective behind that. And even the stats show one thing. What we need to make sure is that people have trust and confidence in coming forward and reporting incidents of ASB and crime to us, so we can investigate them accordingly. And I suppose the one thing I just want to ask is an offer to yourselves. So I've just spoken to the chief exec. So as of next week, we're undergoing a new operating model change within Gwent Police. So fundamentally, that isn't going to affect the way that policing operates on the ground. What it does affect is in terms of we're going to a much more functional model. So no longer will be east and west. So the force will no longer be split in half. So we're going down to 3 pillars. So the neighbourhood pillar, which I'm going to be responsible for, and I'll also be responsible for spec ops. So that will be our roads policing department, our dog section, but all of our neighbour policing teams throughout the force. I think it's a really good opportunity, personally, that I can bring some consistency to the table. And I want to put an offer on the table to all the councillors in this room tonight. The one thing I really want to do is to increase and improve the way in which we as policing teams engage with yourselves as elected officials. So what I'm looking to propose to yourselves is to pull together a monthly meeting, which will be online via Teams, where you will have the opportunity then to ask questions of the local sergeant and the local inspector, very much like you will hold me to account tonight, around all the issues that is affecting you. So that way then we bring a bit of consistency and that better dialogue, I think, between us and yourselves as councillors for those areas. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Leader?
Thank you, Superintendent White, and thank you for those statistics. That is very pleasing to hear, and thank you to you and all your officers for their incredible hard work. As ever, you and your officers put yourselves in the line of harm for us, and we should never forget that you do that, face dangers to protect the wider public. On the points about changing the system, that's really pleasing to hear. I know fellow councillors for Gay and Mays Glass, we've already had that meeting with your officers, and we found that very beneficial and very instructive in what's happening around the Gay and Mays Glass and how we can work collaboratively. 2 questions from me. One is on the city centre. I don't know if you saw the South Wales Argus, was it this week or last week, from shopkeepers reporting fear after they closed the premises, fear of intimidation. Councillor Clark and some of the officers today visited some of those storeholders and got more context to that, should we say, not as newsworthy as maybe the Argus would have liked to have portrayed it. Can I just have your words on that and what the police are doing to reassure those shopkeepers? And second is the under-reporting thing you noted. I know I'm not alone, and many other ward members would hear members of the public put it on social media incidents that they feel are criminal acts, but not reporting it to yourselves. And we need to work more collaboratively to encourage members of the public that putting it on Facebook does not mean the police are aware of what's happening in that ward, and that we need to get that message clear, report it to the police.
So just on the first point, so we have, and we continue to have, Operation Lumley patrols in the city centre. So that is not your local neighbourhood policing teams, this is in addition to. So we've got Home Office funding for £1 million so that we can patrol 18 hotspot areas within the Gwent Force policing area, which has been identified through serious violence, or ASB, and the city centre has been identified as one of those areas. There are 2 dedicated resources working for the vast majority of the daytime hours every day, so we will always see a sustained visible presence, and we've had some really, really good outcomes in terms of arrests, stop searches, referrals, and the like on that. You're absolutely right. It's about visible presence. It's about working with the community safety wardens around that collaborative working, which we know works really well. We've already demonstrated that in the city centre. We've demonstrated it most recently in Bettis, in Mice Glass, because understandably the police can't do it all. So we have to work collaboratively in order to sustain that level of service that we want to provide to our communities. And so that's that. And then sorry, can you repeat the second question? I forgot.
The second was about underreporting and putting it on social media rather than reporting to yourselves.
Yeah. So I think going back a stage, I think it's about trust and confidence. So it's about, first of all, our communities having the trust and confidence to come forward, knowing that they'll receive a really good service. So that's the first thing. And the only way we can do that is being visible, is updating people during our investigations. And what we're looking to introduce very shortly as part of this new model is a new engagement strategy. And it's going to be on 3 pillars. The first one is around our internal staff. So understandably, if we can't get it right internally with our staff, for them to feel trusted and confident and being supported, then we've got no chance of doing that with our communities. That's the first thing. The second thing then is around engaging with our communities. So we have to be visible. We have to work alongside our partners in terms of using your websites and social media platforms to get that message out to as a wide an audience as we can. And thirdly, and as equally as important, is victims. So, adhering to the Victims Code of Practice, making sure that those updates are timely, that we're bringing offenders to justice, and that we're updating them in a time-honoured fashion. So yeah, it's about very much collaboratively working together to get those messages of good work out.
Thank you. I got Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Chief Superintendent, could I convey our thanks to our City Centre Inspector, Rob Ball? He came out with us today, and this has been the second or the third walkabout which we've done with him in the City Centre. What we were able to do was actually visit all of the premises that were named in the Argus article and talk to people affected and get their feedback directly so that we can help to support them and increase confidence, I think, in the fact that very largely the city centre is safe. We do have, even if we could get those figures down to 1% or one person, one incident, that is still one too many. But we have to, well, it's my sincere hope as member for the city centre that, we can actually build that trust with people who work in the city centre. The city centre is developing, we've got an enormous increase in footfall using the city centre, certainly than it was a few years ago. So, it's positive, and we've got to make people's perceptions of it positive. But as the leader mentioned earlier, it's actually about people not reporting things in and using your tech, I can't think of the right word, going through technology to contact yourselves rather than just talking about it to each other and maybe frightening people, but nothing will be done about it if it's only something that they're talking about together. So thank you very much, and thanks to Rob Ball. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll convey those thanks to Rob. My intention with Rob and all of the inspectors throughout the force is that they are much more visible in their communities, so they are leading from the front, and that isn't my expectation going forward. Going on to the part that the leader just mentioned and you've just reiterated is around how we maintain contact. So we are, at this moment in time, looking to trial a system called a messaging alert system, which is being used effectively and successfully in 32 of the other 43 forces at the moment. and that has increased public confidence by way of ease of contact. We can set up bespoke communities within that, so that could be farm watch. So, you know, we can put out targeted messages to our rural crime communities. We can set up things such as shop watch, nighttime economy watch. All those things can be really bespoke, and the messages can be targeted to that one particular area. So that is currently going through our governance at the moment, with a view of being signed off. It's a really good opportunity in terms of sharing information as well. It's a good way of surveying members of the public around what their priorities are, and then it's a caveat, sorry, it's a mechanism then for getting feedback to say, this is what you said, this is what we've done. So, yeah, just watch out for some good times, I think, coming ahead for that.
Thank you very much, Jason. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Superintendent, we have all heard about the recent harrowing report from a woman trafficked from South Wales to Telford when she was a child. She said, and I quote, "I've done work with people in Wales who have been victims of grooming gangs. I think there are major issues with the way the data is collected." She goes on to say, "There are so many county lines coming in and out of Wales that child sexual abuse data has become hidden. But there are grooming gangs in Wales, of course they are." End of quote. We're all sickened by the horrific abuse suffered by far too many children. So can you reassure us there are no so-called grooming gangs in Newport?
Ironically, I had a meeting probably 2 hours ago where I was talking to the two of my DCIs, one who's responsible for public protection and the other one responsible for CID, reactive. And we were talking about some of the issues that I know has been raised previously around sexually exploited females in Pill. And some of those females don't necessarily live in Newport, they actually travel from afar to the area. Just by way of reassurance on that front, we've got dedicated teams within our Operation Quartz team based in Newport, where we've got a dedicated resource who link in and liaise and safeguard those individuals. We have monthly meetings, collaborative meetings with our partners, where we individually assess the needs and the often complex needs of those individuals to ensure that they've got the necessary support and safety plans in place for that. Wider afield, when you talk about county lines, I have to say, and I may well be accused of being biased, but I think our serious organised crime team are phenomenal. I haven't got the results to hand, but I know that in the last 12 months, they've seized record numbers of drugs, arrested and charged. I think, quote me if I'm wrong, the Wang gang has received in excess of 100 years imprisonment in terms of sentences on one particular incident. We've smashed 10 organised crime groups within the Newport area. We're now effectively on 5, which is soon to be 4. So we're targeting that. And of course, we're linking them with our regional counterparts in South Wales and across the border when we're looking at county lines. So in terms of the coordination, I want to give you some reassurance that both internally that we share our intelligence effectively, but also we're coordinating our responses then, both regionally and nationally then. There's an operation called Operation Hydrant, and that is a coordinated approach when you talk about grooming gangs up and down the country. And the criteria is that it's got to be linked to persons of public importance and or organisations, establishments, whether that be care homes and the like. Then Operation Hydrant is a national initiative scheme, and we've got a dedicated Spock in Gwent who are there, and we tap into the regional infrastructure and we share their intelligence. What I can say from having had that conversation 2 hours ago, there's nothing at this moment to suggest that we have got a particular concern in Newport.
Thank you, Jason. It's very interesting. There's a drama on television at the moment about county lines, and it's really worth watching, to be perfectly honest. Councillor Reeks.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Superintendent, the B4591 road that runs through High Cross in Waterstone is a 7.5-tonne weight-restricted road. Yet we're regularly seeing lorries and articulated vehicles that well in excess of those limits using the road as a cut-through down to the Wern Estate or down to the A467 dual carriageway. Obviously, it brings distress to the homeowners that live along the route, as well as increasing the stress on the road surface itself. Is there any an operation can be undertaken in the late afternoon or early evenings to monitor and target these lorry drivers and deter them from using this road as a cut-through? Thank you.
The obvious answer in question to that is yes. So I will speak to Inspector Banfield, who's responsible for the area. But I think long-term, what I will do now that I'll have the roads policing team under my umbrella is look at the we've got a team that's dedicated for that particular area, and it's not just Gwent, but it's South Wales. It's a regional concern. What I can request them to do is ask them to link in with Sean, who's the inspector there, and see if we can get some monitoring done of that area. Would it be worthwhile for Sean to contact you outside of this to get some more detail, and then we can look to put something in place? Happy with that.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Evening, Superintendent. Firstly, very, very pleased to hear that you've had a drop in the spike that we had of antisocial behaviour. I could have told you that yourself through conversations with people that live in the locality of the affected area, that they have been reporting back that we do have a lull, they'll call it, because they're fearful that at any given time it'll kick off again. But with that in mind, this little dip, can we be reassured that that will in no way defer our application for the PSPO that we put in? We had a very passionate partner meeting last week. It was fantastic, actually, to feel and see the passion of some people regarding the antisocial behaviour we've been putting up with, so to speak. But yeah, I think now this has happened, people are fearful that, oh, it's calm at the minute. Will this mean that they won't grant us that PSPO and the things that we've been building going forward as regards the partnership, because there are things ready to go in place, and I'm just hoping that this won't impact that in a negative way, and the conversation carries on, and things that we've requested will be looked at and hopefully granted after much fantastic work, might I say, by Miles, we all know himself, who has put some fabulous work into this. It's nice in a way that the police sometimes say we're probably sick of myself and my colleagues, but I suppose it's our job. But in fairness, can I also say that the police have been very responsive to us, and all big up to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I'd just like to say that we've got a really strong community safety partnership here in Newport under the umbrella of Safer Newport. And Bettis now sits firmly as one of the safer places approach, as indeed other areas of Newport. So there will be a focus on that, as there will be Pill, Mice Glass and other areas. Pleasingly, as I said in my stats, there has been a lull. That is down to better ways of working with our partners. And you would have seen through a push through our comms team is that there's much more posts being put on Facebook, particularly on the Newport offices Facebook, around Bettis shops as an example. But I'm asking much more of my team. I don't simply want photographs of the backs of the heads of my officers walking around and showing that they're in an area. I want them to be a little bit more descriptive around exactly what they're doing. You know, engaging with members of the public, retailers, any positive action in terms of referrals, arrests. And I think we just need to be mindful that the majority of the people we're talking about as caused ASB in the shops are children aged 12 to 13. And I say that because when we all talk about PSPOs, you know, we can talk about PSPOs till we're blue in the face, but ultimately they have to be enforced. So I just would be interested to see what the proposals would be around the conditions that are being put forward for that, and whether or not A, that they're suitable, and secondly, that we are able to fulfil that. Because the last thing I want to do then is to not do what we're telling people we're doing, and then obviously we then fall down around that trust and confidence piece. So I'm really happy to have a conversation outside of this. But I don't consider this to be a lull. I think this is going to be a start of a downward trend in ASB in the Bettis area through that sustained partnership working.
Thank you, Superintendent. And hopefully CPNs play a part as well. Thank you.
Right, thanks a lot. Councillor Screen?
Thank you, Superintendent. At a recent meeting of the chairs of the 4 community councils in Taniga Park and Marshfield, concern was expressed that they felt that they were often neglected in terms of police presence. I mean, that's just a feeling. But it was agreed that there would be a police surgery held on the first Sunday of each month, which is, we appreciate you actually providing that. But all I am concerned about is at the meeting, it appeared that there would be no police presence at the ward councillor surgeries, which we did have in the past. So I appreciate there are pressures on resources, and obviously you can't always, attend at that time because of other things. But I'm grateful if you could look at that again, because we would appreciate having a police presence at our ward surgeries. We can provide the dates and the venues and so on in advance. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. It's a good point, and it's a valid point. And just on that, I think I might have talked about this last time. The Welsh Government have cut funding to those Welsh-funded police community support officers. So we've got to make some really hard decisions. We haven't got the money to backfill and fund those, so we are naturally going to waste and lose quite a significant number of PCSOs. It was only this afternoon I had a meeting to look at where we're then going to relocate these, and they're based on threat, harm, risk and demand. But going back to my point about partnership working, we need to be more effective in the way that we work with our partners. So on those occasions when the police aren't there, our partners are, and vice versa. So we spread that commitment across the board. Of course, I will look at that, but I just wanted to manage probably everybody's expectations in the room, really, that with even more finite resources, we've got to make some difficult decisions going ahead as to where we deploy those officers in those most areas. So, but what I would say, as a positive, Chris Johnson, who's the sergeant there, he's done some really sterling work, I think, in the Marshfield, Tredegar Park area, which I don't think there's been that level of presence there previously. So I know there's some good work going on down there at the moment.
Thank you. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so if you can be sort of fairly quick with the, if you want to get the answers in. I've got Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'll try and be quick. I mean, first of all, thank you, Superintendent Watt, for what you said, and I'll echo all the comments that people have said about the work you do. We are very, very grateful. I don't think there's many occupations where you go to work every day and you could realistically find yourself in a life-threatening situation. And people face that every single day. I think people need to remember that sometimes when they start criticising the police, so it takes a special person to do that. I just wanted to quickly ask about the new setup. You say now we're going to lose the Newport West and merge it into 3 pillars, which I think most councillors and most people will be really grateful for. I think it's a really good move. You mentioned it'd be a monthly meeting. At the moment, I don't know whether this applies to all wards, but certainly in our ward, and I represent Rochester West, and there's other local ones, Shaftesbury, Altrincham and Bettis and a few others. We have a monthly meeting with our local sergeant at the moment, Jason. So are the meetings you're proposing, would they be in place of those current meetings, or would they be as well as? And the second thing I just wanted to quickly confirm was the actual pillars themselves. I heard you mention about neighbourhood pillar. I might have missed the other 2. Thanks.
No problem. So I just spoke to the Chief Executive before we start this meeting, that there are inconsistencies in the way in which our teams throughout the force. So we've got 9 sections within the force. So we've got 3 in Caerphilly, 1 in Blaenau Gwent, 1 in Torfaen, 3 in Newport, and the 1 in Monmouth. So, and unbelievably for a force this size, that we all do things slightly different. And I get sometimes in terms of size of wards, geographical differences and challenges. What I'm trying to do in my new role is to bring a bit of consistency. So they may well, which is great and pleasing to see, that you already have that monthly contact, but I'm not really confident and reassured that that monthly contact exists in other areas. So what I'm looking to do, and if you've got it, great, I'm not going to touch it if it's working, is to make sure that everybody else is brought up to that monthly level, that standard of contact. So that's the first thing. So I just want to bring consistency, really. On the issue of the second question around the pillars, so yes, we've got the east of the force, which I'm currently responsible for, which is Newport and Monmouthshire. And then you've got the west of the force, which is another superintendent. He's responsible for Caerphilly, Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent. Under the new remodelling structure is that east and west is just going to go. We're going to be one force. But what we're going to have instead is that we're going to have 3 functional pillars. So the first one is neighbourhood, which I'm going to be responsible for. And I'm going to have underneath me all of the neighbour policing teams within the force, but also the spec ops, the specialised operations team. So that will be our roads traffic department, our dog section, our force planning, our skit team. You've probably seen the crash detectives on TV. So all those things will fall under me as of next week and next month. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is crime. So we'll have a crime pillar. So within that you will have public protection, serious organised crime, CID, and all of those investigative functions. And then thirdly, you'll have response. And then underneath that pillar, you'll have all of the response teams. So that is east and west as it currently is. So you'll have your Newport response teams, your Monmouth and so on and so forth. You'll have your custody, and then you'll have your force control room. So there's your 3 pillars. I think it's a real opportunity, I think, to get some consistency across all of those 3 pillars and working far better than we were.
All right, I'm sorry, Councillor Howes, we're well out of time. I don't know when they want to have a word with, or write to, or send an email to Superintendent. Right, can I thank you once again? Very positive again. Certainly some of the answers that you were given, it's a way forward we're going, and it's incumbent on all of us, really, isn't it, to support the police as well as the police support us. So thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant, thank you, and thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Sorry, we move on now to questions to the leader. First question will be in ballot list order sent out earlier today. Before we start, the leader, has you have any announcements to make?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just a few to say, building on the wonderful events we had in 2024, including Winter Wonderland, the Food Festival, and to name many others, the Christmas Countdown. Moving into 2025, those list of events is not going to slow down. In fact, we hope to increase them, including obviously the establishing David's Day celebrations, International Women's Day, the new music trail, which is a collection of live music events across the city, as well as Festival of Words, celebration of words in all their forms, including songwriting, storytelling, poetry, all across the central venues in Newport City Centre. The music trail is free. There's also really pleased to the opening of a Newport Transporter Bridge Visitor Centre, which I know groups will be invited to and shown around over the course of the coming months, which I know we're all looking forward to. We all anticipate and celebrate the iconic feature of the Newport Transporter Bridge. We also have the Food Festival and also the ABP marathon and half marathons, which I unfortunately have signed up to do. So I need to maybe start the training. We're also going to be cleaning up the City Centre clock tower, resurfacing more roads, painting the city footbridge, refurbishing and opening new play parks, and of course hope to see the new leisure centre start to spring out. of the foundations. I was always privileged to visit and see the iconic saving of Le Pub for all current and future generations, as the venue was bought by the Music Venue Property, which is a national organisation set up to save iconic music venues across the nation. And it's good that Le Pub is part of that collection, continuing and supporting the live tradition of music across this city, which is embedded in its fabric. So that was greatly welcomed. Also, so pleased that we went to St Andrew's Primary School, the opening of that new investment, £16 million, I believe. And I know Lisbury councillors will be invited around as well, rightly so, in their ward. Pill, £17 million into what is one of the top facilities at primary schools in the city, including one of the net zero carbon school, as well as a new 3G pitch, which I can tell you many other wards are snapping and wanting to have. So we hear you, and we'll try and do our best on that. On fly tipping prosecution, because I know it's a major issue for many of us across the city, we're upping our investigations, upping our prosecutions, taking more people to court, and upping the pressure, because, as we all know, it blights our city. And what I want to plead to residents across the city is, you know who they are, and we know many of you don't tell the council who they are, and we urge you to inform us anonymously, quietly, wherever way you wish. The only way we can truly get on top of this is with your support. And if we can get you on board and help us, we will do the rest and show that fly tipping in our city is not acceptable. Don't dump in your own city. And I know some of the prosecution actually are from, I think the latest one was from a Cardiff business person who then drove into Newport, dumped their rubbish, and then drove back to Cardiff that we took to court. So it's not all Newport residents, it's also people out of county. So we need to be hot on that. And lastly, but not least, I know our youth service inspection received extremely positive inspection. And our youth services is really important. And let's be honest, it's faced a battering over the austerity years. But if we want to help our youth, particularly those youth who are maybe shown in the door to the illicit activity, we have to beef up our youth services, and these inspections are really welcome. So those are my announcements for this. Council, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Very positive, that. Right, first question to the Leader is Councillor Matthew Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Member. It's been 6 months since Labour came to power in Westminster, and I could talk about what a complete disaster that has been, or I could talk about the quarter of a century Labour have been in power in the Ivory Tower in Cardiff Bay, the failing educational standards, waiting lists, and all their warped priorities. But I won't. As the Presiding Member said, I'm going to start the new year on a positive note. Back in December 2017, I was quoted in the press saying the Conservative group in Newport would oppose any additional taxes that would damage the city and put others in an advantage over us. I raised this with previous leaders who were reluctant to comment either way. So can I thank the Leader of the Council and the Labour group for their support in putting Newport first and following our lead in opposing the tourism tax. As you know, we all need all the support we can get, not just in words, but increased financial assistance as well. And one important measure of success is getting more people to work in the city centre. A recent article in the business section of the Western Mail, there it is, has a headline, "Take up office space in the capital has been the best for 7 years, with 92 office deals concluded. Yet in Newport, the Admiral building is still empty, and the yet-to-be-finished office block opposite the station remains derelict. So why can't we fill these units, and why are the Welsh Government still investing heavily in Cardiff and not here?" Thank you, Presiding Member.
Sorry, I was just replying to his. I was thanking him for his question. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, Presiding Member. Well, we're ahead of you, like we were ahead of you on the visitor levy. Just to be clear, no visitor levy in Newport. We're open for business tourism's key to this city. We've got many assets like the Transporter Bridge, the Roman cultural heritage and remains. I'm trying to look for ancient remains. Is that the right word? As many as other cultural things across the city, including the Celtic Manor, which is a modern resort that we wish to have more visitors to. We are open for business. This Labour group is pro-business, pro-growth, no visitor levy. I don't speak for the Welsh Government. I fight for Newport. We all fight for Newport. This group fights for Newport. We don't want money in Cardiff. We want money in Newport. I've been very clear on that, consistent. In regards to regeneration, we're ahead of you, but we won't tell you the details until about 6 months on. These things take a lot of time, but can I reassure you, we are ahead of you.
Thank you, Leader. I've got Councillor Mark Howells.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Leader, you'll be aware from... Sorry, Councillor.
You won't be timed, don't worry.
Thank you. Leader, you'll be aware from some of the conversations that we've had at the Scrutiny Committee that the authority is currently struggling with customer service, and there are some cultural problems in responding to customer queries in an acceptable time frame, particularly via the contact centre, which then goes on to other services. When talking to residents, we hear constantly that nobody answers the phone or responds to emails. It's a recurring theme amongst residents that we get all the time. We've seen some improvements in some areas, and you'll see from the recent performance and scrutiny data that some of those things have also gone the wrong way as well and are getting worse rather than better. Often the comment we hear is everybody's working from home. Does the Leader agree it's time to mandate people back into the office for a Monday to Thursday that the Civic Centre is open to build a culture of customer first and start delivering better services to our residents?
Thank you, Councillor Howells. He's conflating two issues. Working at home doesn't necessarily impact on customer service. On the customer service bit particularly, as Cabinet Member before I was even Leader, I instigated a review because, like you, I heard those concerns from residents. I mean, all of us have. And I invested 350k in revamping our customer services. And that project is ongoing. And I think I know from the scrutiny, you know that project is ongoing and you know that investment's in there to improve those services. I am committed to delivering that because we are a listening council. We need to be responsive. You know my feelings on utilising tech to improve that speed. On the customer contact, the telephone, we need to up our game. We need to make sure it works and is right. Does the call centre methodology work anymore in the 21st century? I'm not convinced, but that is for the review to go through. If a person wants to call the call centre and have with a complex issue, which is what we increasingly find, it's not when is the bins on when are my bins collection. We're finding that in the whole, residents, when they call us, tend to be very complex issues, where the call handlers aren't sufficiently trained, they're generalists, to adequately answer that query. So we're reflecting on that, reviewing on that. Can we get the resident to the specialist quicker so they can get their answer resolved and reduce those waiting times? And I think you were there when we had that conversations. I am determined to drive that through. The project is invested in, and we need to improve our customer service contact.
Thank you, Leader. I've got Councillor Kevin Whitehead.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Before I ask the question, can I just big up Councillor Corton and crew for Newport at the moment. It's taken me back with the music scene. It's fantastic. Just keep up the brilliant work. I'm a massive music lover, and it's great to see, like you said earlier on, the pub, etc. There's music venues for all tastes in the town, and it's getting fantastic. So, just before I ask my question, big ups for that. It's great work on there. I will say what I feel. Fantastic. My question is, Leader, a fabulous initiative regarding people around the more vulnerable people around winter fuel allowance that was taken off some, and the initiative you rolled out. All my question is can you answer, has there been many contacts regarding people struggling with their winter fuel allowances, and has the council been in a position to help them people in reality? Thank you.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I can find out for you, Councillor Whitehead. It would be suffice to say people have contacted individual councillors and the council, and we encourage more to do so if they are struggling, because we will direct them to the appropriate service. I visited Citizens Advice Bureau last week, and I know they're seeing residents with cost of living crisis, and they're trying to help them. And so it would be fair to say we probably will have. I don't know the exact number. I'll get you that. On the LIFT programme, thank you for highlighting that. We're investing 50k to install that LIFT programme to identify all those residents across Newport who might be eligible for central government support, who aren't accessing it but are eligible for that, including, and I'm going off memory here, so I'm happy to be corrected, over 2,000 pensioners who are eligible for pension credit but don't apply for pension credit, which opens up many other benefits for them to receive, including the winter fuel allowance, which they deserve. And on your point about music, quite right, Councillor Corton is an absolute gem in driving music forward in this city, and I'm proud to have her on the Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader. I've got Councillor Hurahan.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I'd like to ask the Leader if he'd join with me in welcoming the tremendous progress that's been made in our primary schools. It's a story of success that seems to give and give. And in what ways can we ensure that we keep this progress going and maybe encourage it with a little funding in the future years? Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for that question. We've invested 600k into our primary schools, cash injection this financial year. Why have we done that? To exactly support the schools, as the Councillor rightly highlights. They have delivered for this city. Councillor Evans talked about the Welsh Government and education. That's not true in Newport. Our schools are delivering under huge pressure. Let's not make no bones about it. They've had financial pressures for the last 15 years, and yet our teachers, our teaching assistants, and the pupils and those parents who support them, and the governors who give up their time, have delivered for this city. And this council, as a Labour group, we're determined to back them. So 600k for our primary schools, on top of 600k for our secondary schools. That's 1.2 million into our schools, cash, no conditions, injected into those schools this year. For next financial year, the budget's out for consultation, but we anticipate improving that. 8% increase in our schools in cash terms, that's £11 million. We had an inspection at the end of last year from Estin. It was an incredible inspection who gave a very positive support about the council, our officers, our cabinet member, who give tremendous support to our schools, particularly our chief head of education, who I know is an incredibly diligent and supportive council worker in supporting our schools, and is appreciated by all the heads. And I know that because myself and Councillor Davis have visited every secondary school, and we're quietly going visiting every primary school, speaking to the heads directly to hear the concerns they are facing. We are committed to our schools because they are delivering for us.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Reeks.
Thank you, Presiding Member. In the full council meeting in November, I asked the question of the Leader about the lobbying of the Welsh Government in respect of the M4 motorway network and the inherent problems it brings to the people and the economy of Newport. I was pleased to hear then that the relevant Cabinet member was off to Westminster the very next day to discuss the road system. Can the Leader enlighten us, please, as to the outcome of the meeting and what potential lobbying will be further taken up with the Welsh Government on Newport's behalf? Thank you.
Leader.
The meeting in Westminster was about Burns, but Westminster, let's be clear, Westminster, if they were to support Newport's Burns recommendation, would be on the train stations, not the road. So trains is not devolved. Train stations has to be delivered by the UK government. The road network is Welsh Government. So on the Welsh Government, which I think is your primary concern, we lobby Welsh Government and speak to Welsh Government at a political level monthly. I know officers are in more frequent contact. My position is long held well before, and I think I said at the last council, if memory serves me, I'm pro-M4 relief. The Welsh Government have decided not to press ahead, and they made a promise to deliver for Newport. monies to support alleviating the traffic. I mean, I drive around Newport. There's a lot of pinch points. I'm not immune to it either. None of us are. We all, Newport residents, I'm very clear they need to deliver.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I spoke a bit earlier on about the increased footfall that we experienced, particularly through October, so I didn't really mean to preempt what I was going to ask you now. But perhaps you could put it in context of the rest of Wales and the UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And it is a positive news story about footfall. Our city centre footfall figures, which are in front of me, were up 2% in December, and that's nearly a third of a million visitors compared to the previous year. As a comparator, I think Wales went down 1%, and the UK went down 2% in terms of footfall. Of course, it was supported by all the festivals and the Winter Wonderland and the free car parking on every Saturday we announced, although unfortunately every Saturday up to Christmas seemed to have terrible weather, which no one can control. We're supportive of our city centre, but let's not kid ourselves. Footfall doesn't mean spend. So while we have good footfall and we want to encourage more footfall, we need to give more incentives and drive more reason for people to go in and spend money in the city centre. And I know Councillor Clark and I talk about that on a daily basis because it is important for our city and for our residents. And I know it comes up on every door, and we all knock every door, and people will raise it, and it's foremost in our minds.
Sorry. Councillor Routley.
My question has been covered. Thank you.
That's the first, that is. Well done. I've got a Councillor Debbie Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Leader, can you confirm what we're doing to alleviate the pressures on our residents right across the board? Everyone have mentioned about poverty, etc. What's this Labour group going to do for the residents from all wards, please?
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Can I first put on record, some members in the Council won't be aware, the tremendous work Councillor Debbie Harvey and Councillor Tim Harvey, particularly and as well in support of Councillor Druitt, have done on the poverty agenda across this city, and Councillor Jenkins as well in the Pill and Allway areas. They give up their own time to support their communities, hot food with business in the community, delivering for community groups across this city. Can I just pay testament to that and to them on that agenda? As Councillor Deb Harvey rightly points out, but what are we doing for the citizens across the city? And it was Councillor Harvey highlighted the LIFT programme to me and said we need to do this for our residents, and I agree with her totally. So we just don't want words, and I know Councillor Ratley hates us when we just talk about words, quite rightly, and so does Councillor Harvey. So we've put 50k into that LIFT programme, and more if we need to start contacting those residents across all wards, regardless of whoever is elected to them. We don't care. What we care about is those residents who are eligible for those benefits from the UK government are made aware and then are supported in making those right applications so they get the money, and I want to be crystal clear about this, they deserve. And particularly in relation to our pensioners, who have worked hard all their lives, paid into the system all their lives. All we're saying is you might be eligible for something because you've paid into the system, and we want to make sure you receive it. And this Labour group, and I know the whole Council, will back that initiative.
Thank you, Leader. I think we've come to the end of questions to the Leader. We move on now to item 6, the Treasury Management Half-Yearly Monitoring Report. The Leader to present the report, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This is the first of 2 reports we receive on the Treasury Management during the year, and the purpose of the report is to inform the Council of Treasury activities undertaken within the first half of the 24-25 financial year. It outlines our borrowing and investment activities during that year, provides an outline regarding to our compliance agreed with our prudential indicators, and provides an outlook for the forthcoming year and medium term. It's already been considered by Governance and Audit, which I believe have an annual report later on, which this Council will consider, and there was no comments from that committee on the Council to consider. So, on the key points, the first half of the financial year, the Council undertook some early borrowing in the form of 3 temporary loans totalling £15 million and 1 term loan totalling £10 million. This was done at a time when the interest rates dipped for a very short period of time, and the Council, knowing it needs to borrow in 24-25, took advantage of that dip. And can I just say thank you to our financial officers for being prudent and on the ball and using their nous agilely to do the best for this Council. And I can put on record our testament to them for their hard work on that agenda. As a result of this, total borrowing increased by £20.1 million from March 24, from £137.1 million to £157.2 million. The £25 million of borrowing that was undertaken was slightly offset by 2 small PWLB loans that were redeemed and a number of EIP loans, which is equal instalment of principal, too many acronyms, presiding member, but stick with me, which were paid in instalments over the course of the year. As a result of undertaking early borrowing, investments increased from £13.9 million to £41.8 million, and the authority has been able to reinvest this on a short-term basis. It's important to note we expect this investment balances will reduce as the year progresses, as we invest, and as reserves are being used as planned, and the progress of the capital programme reduces our ability to internally borrow. Of the end-year balance, £10 million continues to be held in long-term covered bonds to ensure the Council retains its professional client status, meaning it can access better borrowing rates. The report confirms that Council has complied with its prudential indicators, with the exception of 2 indicators set out for 24-25. These are indicators designed to show the proportion of financing costs to the net revenue stream. This is due to the increase in financing costs, which has arisen from a change in the accounting for leases and does not represent an additional cost to this authority. And the second one, the indicator measures the potential impact of changes in interest rates on the revenue budget if maturing loans require refinancing, and an estimation, not a limit, of what resources would be required to cover a change in interest rates. Therefore, these should be viewed as a soft target rather than a hard limit. Our outlook for the next 4 years: there is an underlying need to borrow for further capital programmes to be delivered and to utilise our reserves. There's also a need to refinance some large loans, circa £20 million, towards the end of the year, and this has been planned for. There is a risk that remaining low bows could need redeeming, but the hope is that equivalent, if not better, interest rates could be accessed for replacement of these loans if required. Officers will always monitor interest rates closely to ensure best rates are accessed for any new borrowing in liaison with our external Treasury advisors. I conclude that the overview of the first half-year report for Treasury activities for 24-25, and I ask that we note the contents of the report. Presiding Member.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a seconder to the report? Thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve? Okay. Are there any comments on the report? We will now, there's no one wants to speak on that. No, we will now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote now, starting from all those in favour? There's none against. Yeah, I thought it said 100%.
Yeah, but it takes a second.
All right, okay. I'm a bit keen here, obviously. Right, I think that's all.
Yeah, just for the benefit of the members in the chamber, it takes a little while for the online poll to populate and for people to vote in it, and that's what the delay is. Just check whether there's any votes against online.
Yeah, are there any votes against online or any abstentions? Oh, that's carried. Therefore, the Treasury Management Monitoring Report is duly noted and approved. We move now to item 7, the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. The Leader to present the report, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This is a procedural report required to be considered and approved by full Council. It essentially confirms that Council will adopt the National Council Reduction Scheme, which the Welsh Government has updated for 25-26 financial year. We approve this each year and are required to consider annually. The report sets out some of the key changes the Welsh Government have made to this national scheme. We will ensure that Wales has one national scheme which is consistent wherever you live. In addition, in improvement, we consider a small number of discretions locally, and these are explained. In the report, it is proposed we maintain the current position on these. That explains the scheme we have and the background to it. I would like to take this opportunity to remind and encourage all residents in receipt of low incomes who require financial assistance to pay their council tax to contact the Benefits Department to apply for the scheme. It's a valuable scheme and it's there for you, and it's one of those schemes that the LIFT programme will help us identify residents who haven't applied but they're eligible for to reduce their council tax, because still in residents across our ward still don't know they're eligible for this, and we want to make sure they are aware of it, and at least we can encourage them to apply. If they don't apply, that's up to them, but if we can encourage them and apply, they can get reduced council tax, and who doesn't want that? So therefore, I ask the Council approves the council tax reduction scheme for 25-26 in accordance with the Welsh Government Tax Reduction Schemes Regulations 2013, exercising its local discretions as indicated in the report, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a second to the report? Councillor Davis is seconded. Do you wish to speak now or reserve? Okay. Are there any comments on the report? No. We will now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote, now starting with all those in favour? Are there any against? Are there any abstentions? Well, that's unanimous, yes. Therefore, the Council tax reduction scheme is duly noted and approved. Move on to item 8 now. The Chair of Democratic Service, Councillor Rugley, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This report proposes amendments to the standing orders to enhance the format of leaders' questions at full council meetings for more effective member engagement, as outlined in the report papers before you. This report is being prepared by the Head of Laws and Standards in consultation with the Leader, the Deputy Leader, the Presiding Member, senior officers and the Democratic Services Committee. I shall move the adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Rugley. Is there a second to the report? Councillors?
I second the report and I'll reserve the right to speak later.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the report? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Member. There are a few issues which we need to perhaps consider in a separate forum to this, so the Conservative Group will be supporting this tonight.
Okay, thank you. No one else wants to... Oh, Councillor Hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I, of course, welcome these changes to the leaders' question in particular and the extension of the time. And I welcome the way that Councillor Routley led the Democratic Services Committee. But if members will recall, we did have some discussions about filibustering in leaders' questions, not actually asking a question, but talking about, for instance, the Welsh Assembly or music in the city. And questions should be questions. They're not an area for political statement. They are a genuine attempt to find an answer. And I ask you to bear that in mind in the future, Mr. Presiding Officer, sir.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Al-Dawami.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. It's definitely a step in the right direction, and for that reason, I will be supporting it. I think really what we had over the number of a few years now, you know, 15 minutes, quite honestly, has not been enough to actually sort of, you know, make justice for this item. We've just had a session on questions to the leader, and I think for the first time I felt we really had a good cross-section of questions from a number of people, and I think the questions were relevant. Some of them are celebratory, some of them are really sort of, you know, getting attention of members to things that are happening and so on. So I thought we could have gone a little bit longer than 20 minutes. You know, I thought as we are now modifying this or proposing changes to this, I think half an hour for questions by members to the leader of the council is not too long, and it would give more opportunity, therefore, not only really to sort of leaders of the political groups, but also to backbench members to ask a question or to draw our attention to things that are happening in the city. So it's a bit difficult. It's difficult to criticize because it's been discussed with the Democratic Services Committee, and I would have thought they could have gone a little bit more adventurous and allowed doubling of the time rather than just 5 minutes. I think the other point that I would have liked to have seen, and I think we saw a glimpse of it today, is that it should be open.
Councillor Al-Nawami, I'm sorry to stop you, but you're well over your 2 minutes now.
2 minutes. I thought we had 3 minutes, presiding member.
Been given, sorry, Councillor Al-Nawami, I must apologise to you. Councillor Al-Nawami, I want to apologise to you. Councillor Al-Nawami, please, I want to apologise to you. I was given the wrong information, okay? You can carry on.
Minutes, is it? Okay, I won't be long, presiding member. Yeah, another change I would have liked to have seen is that it should be open to backbench members, and I think we should be able to submit our question within the proposed 5 days, and then on sort of first come, first served basis. So I would have liked to have seen that. I'll vote for it as a way forward, but it would be good just, you know, to consider some of the points I'm speaking about. Thank you.
Point of order, Chair, Mr. Presiding Member, sorry. Is Councillor Al-Nawami making a comment or proposing an amendment?
No,
well, if I am allowed
he said, sorry, can I just, he said he was going to vote for the proposal.
Okay. I've got a question.
I think the seconder wants to come back on the report, which he has the right to do. So. There's no one else who wants to speak anyway, is there? No.
Just to clarify, any backbencher can ask me anything they want. I don't think there's a restriction on backbenchers. And on the time, you know, I've tried to be very full of information, but quicker in my responses, so I can cover a lot more questions from. I think I took 8 this time, maybe 9, and I think I took 8 last, all within under 15 minutes. So we're extending it to 20 minutes, and I hope I've shown the council that I actually do want to answer your questions in a short, sharp manner. And to be honest, regardless of the leader, do you really want the leader to drone on for 30 minutes? I can't see there's a crying out demand for that. Particularly amongst the public. And also, if any councillor can come up and chat to me, I'm always willing to speak to members if they want to chat to me in my office or outside, any time. So, you know, I am open, and let's try 20 minutes. I don't think we need half an hour, is my instinct on it. I don't think there's any huge demand.
Right, okay. Right, thanks for that. Now, we now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote now start? Sorry, I apologise.
No, stop apologising. It's not a good look for you. You don't have to. Not all the time. Presiding member, please. That's normally my job. Can I just say thank you to the Democratic Services Committee, to the officers, to everybody that's been involved in scrutinising this and coming to the recommendation. It seems easy on the face of it to just come up and to present this report, but it has been well debated, well spoken about. It's been pulled every which way you want, and I think we are making progress, as we've seen today, and even I'm getting a bit more concise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. So we now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote now, starting with all those in favour? There seems a difference that we've had 15 there, and sometimes we've had 16 in there, so someone hasn't voted. So I don't know which way they're going. Right now, so we move now. Then it was all those in favour. So therefore, the number of votes for I therefore the air quality. Sorry. I've got it down here wrong, actually. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. It's carried. I'm reading off the minutes here, and it's been written down wrong for me, to be honest. I apologise for that. So obviously that one is carried. Okay. Thank you. We move on now to item 9. The Strategic Director, Transform Corporate, to present the report, please.
Good evening, Council. So I'm pleased to present the Council's annual report for the Newport Governance and Audit Committee, which looks at the work undertaken by the committee in the year 2023-24. The committee consists of 3 lay members, Mr Gareth Chapman, who's Chair, Mr Don Reid, Vice Chair, and Dr Norma Barry, along with 5 elected members. And during the reporting period, those members were Councillors Cox, Harris, Horton, Jordan and Mogford. First, I'd like to thank the members of the committee for their challenge and assessment of our various governance arrangements during the year. This is a critical part of the Council's assurance processes, and the robust work of the committee should provide a level of comfort to Council regarding the collective management of financial controls, risk and governance arrangements across the Council. Key activities the committee undertook in the year 23-24 include approving the internal audit plan and monitoring performance against the plan, reviewing internal audit reports and seeking assurance of change where required, providing assurance regarding progress against recommendations of our regulatory bodies, reviewing the draft financial statements, reviewing the Council's Treasury management strategies and compliance against prudential borrowing indicators, assessing the effectiveness of the authority's risk management arrangements, maintaining an overview of the Council's constitution in respect of contract procedure, rules and financial regulations, making recommendations as appropriate to Cabinet and Council on any matters reported through the Governance and Audit Committee. The annual report concludes that the committee has acted in accordance with the requirements set out in the Local Government Elections Act 2021 and discharged its legislative duties. The recommendation is the report today recommends the Council accepts the Council has met its legislative responsibilities and agree with the Committee's annual report and offers thanks to committee members for their robust challenge and hard work during the year.
Thank you, Rhys. You have heard the report. Does anyone wish to propose acceptance of the proposal set out in the report?
Mr President, I'd like to propose the report, if I can, as acceptance.
Do you want to speak on the report? No. Okay. Is there a second to the report? Do you wish to speak now? Okay. Are there any comments on the report? We will now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their votes now, starting with all those in favour? All favour in the chamber. Okay, put your hands down in the chamber. There are none. The case is carried. Therefore, the Governance and Audit Committee annual report is duly noted and approved. I move on to item 10 now, notice of motion, ban and release of helium balloons. Councillor Forsey is going to reintroduce this item and formally move the motion.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This motion calls for a complete ban on the release of helium balloons from any council land, regardless of the purpose. The council to actively publicise and encourage the use of alternative, environmentally friendly methods as a method of celebration or remembrance. Officers to implement these measures through appropriate clauses in leases and licences granted by the council, and the development of communication strategies to raise public awareness. When helium balloons are released into the sky, they eventually fall back to Earth, cluttering our land, rivers and seas, posing a significant threat to wildlife. Marine animals often mistake balloons bobbing in the ocean for food and ingest them, leading to fatal blockages in their digestive systems. Land animals, including cows, dogs, sheep and birds, get entangled in the strings attached to the balloons, resulting in injuries and deaths. Considering the harrowing reality, an innocent animal starving to death because a balloon has blocked its digestive tract. This is the grim fate imposed on wildlife with each balloon released. We cannot, in good conscience, allow this to continue. Moreover, helium is a non-renewable resource. Once depleted, there is no way to create more. This gas, crucial for various technical and medical applications, is being wasted on single-use balloons. The scarcity of helium adds another layer of urgency for our call to action. The Marine Conservation Society has been at the forefront of this battle, urging local authorities to ban the release of balloons due to the dangers they pose. And in their campaign, Don't Let Go. These balloons have grave consequences, and it's time we heed their call. Alternatives exist. Instead of balloons, we can use candles, bubbles, coloured lights, flower petal, confetti, or plant a tree to commemorate special occasions. There are environmentally friendly options to celebrate moments without causing harm to our planet. By supporting this motion, we're taking a stand for the environment, for wildlife, and for the responsible use of our natural resources. Let us act now to ensure a cleaner, safer, and more sustainable future for the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone wish to propose an amendment? No. Is there a seconder to the proposal?
Yes, sir. Presiding officer, yes.
I heard someone say, who seconded?
Sorry, Presiding officer.
Sorry, I didn't see you over there. Do you wish to speak to the proposal?
Can I speak at the end?
Yeah, you can do. Anyone else wants to speak on the proposal? Councillor Hurain.
Apologies, Councillor Forsey. Perhaps I should have talked to you about this earlier. But the Marine Conservation Society, when they're calling for candles as an alternative on public land, I really can't accept that's a good idea. You know, candles are obviously got to be lit and they'll have to go somewhere. And various other things, such as coloured lights. We should only be looking at totally biodegradable things on public land, which obviously would then fade into the environment. So I'd ask Councillor Forsey to consider this idea, although I don't think it's actually in the proposal. It seems to be advice from another organisation, which quite clearly we can't change. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Hurain. Councillor Howells.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Yeah, I'm very supportive of this motion. I think anything that can take plastic detritus out of the environment, has to be supported. Obviously, this is only something that, we've got control of within our own council remit and our own council assets, but I really like the thought about thinking about appropriate clauses in leases and licences granted by the council, and that's definitely something that we'll look into. So yeah, just very supportive of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I've got to be honest, when I saw this on the agenda, I was really pleased. This is something that I felt quite strongly about for a long time. It's something when you sort of see on the telly, you see these mass balloon releases, and my heart sinks every time I see it, because every time I see those balloons going up, I'm just thinking about how many turtles are going to die, how many animals are going to ingest these bits of plastic, never mind just the litter inside of it. But then there's another side where you have to consider as well the human element, because all these balloon releases, they're usually there because of some very traumatic experience, and there's a human element behind that. There's somebody who's probably suffered some massive tragedy. So we need to bear that in mind as well. We don't want to demonise what people are doing or the thoughts behind it. But there are alternatives, and one of the things that sort of occurs to me is you've really got to do a quick Google search to see that if you do a search on any of this, you'll see some really harrowing images of birds being caught in wire and strings, animals that have suffered from swallowing these bits of plastic, and as Councillor Forsey said, block their digestive tracts. They die slow, agonising deaths, and we wouldn't put up with this with domestic animals. If anybody was caught doing this deliberately to a domestic animal, they'd be prosecuted. But because we don't see the effects, because it happens miles and miles away, maybe a few months down the line, it doesn't have that same impact on people. But it is really, really important that we bear in mind what effect this has when we release these balloons. I understand the reasons behind it, and you want to celebrate, commemorate some of these events in a memorable way. I totally get that. But there are alternatives. We need to move away from balloons. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Mogford.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I fully support this motion. I think it's been a long time coming. I would ask perhaps at some point whether we should go further and look at fireworks in more detail because of the absolute negative effect and the poisons that get released and all the other aspects. So, yeah, I fully support this, but there's a way to go, I think. Thank you.
It's interesting about the fireworks. Most animals are scared to death, to be honest, when bonfire night or even the lead up to it. I've got Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Presiding Member. So I fully support the motion as it addresses both environmental concerns and the well-being for wildlife. But also we do recognise that many of the release of helium balloons is a deeply personal and symbolic act. But this motion doesn't want to stop that, but actually it wants to provide more sustainable ways of allowing that to still happen on our council land. There are meaningful alternatives that allow people to commemorate and celebrate in a way that doesn't harm the environment. And the use of, I did have candles written down, Councillor Hurren, but you are right, it is dangerous. Bubbles, flower petals, or even planting trees, which is then a long-lasting memory for that person. Also, it's good to see this motion is aligning with the helium balloon motion, as also aligns with the existing motion on sky lantern bans, which we passed in 2017, so I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Routley.
Presiding Member, thank you so much. As someone who 5 years ago celebrated or commemorated the loss of his grandson in Beechwood Park by a massive release of helium balloons. Well, time has moved on and we've become more educated. And I think that we're becoming more aware of the damage that we can do, the damage that we can inflict on wildlife and on other aspects of human life as well. And as we become more, I guess, responsibly educated, we will find responsible alternatives to not release balloons in public places like we have done in the past. And as I say, I've been a part of that, and I actively took part in it. At that time, I wasn't thinking with the right mind. But now I would reconsider that, and I would change my actions. Like Councillor Mogford, I'd like to commend the Cabinet member for bringing this forward. I also would like to say to you, please can you not stop there? Can we look at the fireworks? Because the amount of traumatic stress that has on all animals is unbelievable, and also humans as well. And it's also a danger. There's always an element of danger to anybody when we release these devices. I'm not a killjoy. I want people to celebrate. I want religious festivals to continue, but we have to do it in an organised, well-mannered, well-presented way. And as technology moves on, we will see laser lights instead of fireworks. We will be progressing in different ways. And I commend this and support this. And I'd hope that we'd find a way of even enforcing it, because that's one of the biggest things that we face. So, as you guessed, I'm in favour of it.
Right, I've got Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and I think Councillor rightly put that very well indeed. Having proposed the original motion back in 2017 to ban Chinese sky lanterns, I would of course be in favour of extending this, although I'm failing to struggle why we're just talking about helium balloons. Balloons full stop, whether they're biodegradable, doesn't make any difference. They can still cause immense suffering to wildlife. So I'd like an explanation about that, please. You know, there's a recent vigil in Liverpool to celebrate the life of the Vivian, so that hundreds of balloons being released. And although this is very well intentioned, I was surprised that the City Council didn't suggest alternatives. And looking at the comments on social media, we have moved an all long way in the last sort of 10, 15 years. Because the amount of comments, negative comments on there about doing this. So, yeah, I welcome it. You might like to mention to the Marine Conservation Society that, sadly, although other councils are on there with the Sky Lantern motion, we don't seem to be mentioned at all on their website. So perhaps you'd like to mention that when you, if it does pass and you do write to them, Cabinet Member, then that might be useful as well. But, yes, I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I suppose one of my best manifesto memories is watching a certain political party's 100 or so balloons in one bundle accidentally escaping and drifting away across the city, drifting towards Killeen. And we all sat and giggled and we all sat and laughed as we thought, well, off to join the Killeen Festival, it's on the same day. But I think we also knew very guiltily that these would land in some field somewhere and do some animal some harm. They're not biodegradable. And I go walking in our beautiful countryside, and you regularly see the detritus and the rubbish, and you see the balloons hanging in our trees and our fields. They're damaging, they harm our animals. I absolutely support this motion, but it was funny to see them lose their balloons on that day. It's brilliant.
There's no one else wants to speak, so Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I do remember Councillor Evans in 2017. It was, I think it was the first, very early on in our tenure, and I think it was the first time I actually agreed with my view on a policy, and this one will be equally strange, agreeing with Councillor Ratley, I'm sure. So, but I was raised in North Wales, and I had the beaches in front of me and the mountains behind me, and got involved in maritime conservation very, very early on in my life. We were cleaning beaches at 8. And I think there hasn't really been many times I can remember going backwards or forwards from our house where we haven't seen the consequences of certainly plastic in general, but certainly balloons as well. I remember finding, awful things really, carcasses of dead animals that we knew would have been gone in 2 or 3 weeks. The balloons inside them would have been there forever, and that's the reality of what we're dealing with. I think we are blessed. We're in an amazingly beautiful country. The biodiversity is amazing. The ecosystems are amazing. And I think, as politicians especially, we have a duty to do our bit and protect that. And I think this is what this is about today. And I thank Councillor Forsey for bringing it forward. There's been some really good points as well to add to that, I think, by members. I think, we do have to remember that these balloons don't go up to heaven. They go up and they come down, and they travel vast distances. I think a school project in the UK actually ended up with a balloon travelling 10,000 miles and ending up in Australia, and that's the reality. They come down everywhere, and they come down in rivers, in lakes, on beaches, all over our ecosystems, and they do damage. They do damage to wildlife. I think Councillor Reynolds was talking there as well, that they do actually kill domestic animals as well, and they kill farm animals, which I'm sure some of our councillors will be aware. There are no safe balloons. We've done a lot of work on this in maritime conservation, and the reality is that even the biodegradable ones don't really biodegrade, and they go into our water systems, and they go, they do cause immense damage. I see when we threaten our own biodiversity, we're threatening ourselves. It's not just about the animals, we're threatening ourselves. And our own food supplies, our jobs, our economies, and our sense of place as well. I think that's well documented by Natural Resources Wales as well. And they also say, let us do our bit and be mindful. And that's what this is about today. Be mindful of the impact of our actions. And let's get that, let's get it right with that delicate balance, really, of nature. So I thank Councillor Forsey for this, and it's something that I'm proud to second as well. And thank you for colleagues for supporting.
Councillor Forsey, do you want to wind up the debate?
I just want to thank everybody for their comments. It's been really interesting, and I'm glad to hear so many positive comments. Especially, I'd like to say to Councillor Routley, I'm sorry for your loss, and I thank you for your comments. And I hope everybody will support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Forsey. Right, shall we move on now to the vote? All those in favour? Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, they didn't put the hands down in the room. We're just waiting on the... I think that's unanimous to be put. Yeah, that's carried. Can I? So obviously the motion is carried anyway, so I'm pleased about that. Can I just remind members who are online that I did mention earlier on that members joining remotely are reminded the use of online chat function during meetings is not permitted. So please, can they take heed of that? You're not allowed to do it, so please don't do it again. Right, we'll move on now to item 11, which is the schedule of council meetings. Councillor Davis, are you going to just move that?
Happy to move.
Okay.
Second, presiding member.
Okay, thank you. I lost my pages here in a minute. Right, are there any comments on the proposal? No. Should we now to proceed to the vote? Would all councillors please cast their votes, starting with all those in favour? Unanimous, and put your hands down in the chamber. And just wait for the online vote to come through. Yeah, it's carried anyway. There's two hasn't voted. So we move on now to item 12, the mayoral nominations for 2025-2026. Sorry? No.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm delighted to announce, Councillor, that today I will be announcing that Councillor Thomas, who has resolutely stood as a Councillor for Stow Ward since 2012, will be our Mayor for 25-26. Councillor Thomas is an incredibly hard-working, experienced councillor. I think everybody will agree with me. She's worked on a number of committees, including Democratic Service Committee, Performance Scrutiny Committee, Place and Corporate, and is currently the Chair of the Licence Committee. Councillor Thomas is also on the Board of Governors for my Cebu School and St Willis Primary School, and I'm sure everyone will agree with me and join me in wishing Councillor Thomas the best for the year of 2025. You've got a lot to look forward to.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Can I invite the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Matthew Evans, to formally second the nomination?
Thank you, Presiding Member, and I reiterate the Deputy Leader's comments on that, and I'm sure we'll be saying more about you at your mayoral nomination thing. So can I formally second the proposal?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Presiding Member.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed to the vote. Would all councillors please cast their vote now, starting with all those in favour? That's carried in the chamber. You can put your hands down now. Thanks. That's unanimous. Right, we move on to item 13 now. Questions to the Cabinet Member. There's one written question to Cabinet Members. And it's to reach your question to the Cabinet Member, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. The Welsh Government's Transforming Towns Loans Programme that supports local authorities with town and city centre regeneration projects closed its latest £10 million round of funding on Friday the 10th of January. The aim of the fund, amongst other things, is to look at ways to reduce the number of vacant properties, to find more sustainable uses for them, and to ultimately increase footfall. Can a Cabinet Member confirm whether any of this funding was applied for to assist with the regeneration of Newport City Centre, and if so, what projects has the money been earmarked for? Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you, Councillor Reeks, for the question. Regeneration funding is available in different formats. The Council continues to access funding for both our own priority projects and also on behalf of landowners and developers. We seek to ensure that developers and property owners are offered the right kind of intervention from the right provider. This includes accessing funding from the likes of Cardiff Capital Region, Lottery Funding, UK Government, Shared Prosperity Funding, Welsh Government and the Council's own funding for businesses. The support is a blend of grants and loans, and the Council has supported a number of projects to secure loan funding. For other schemes, loan funding is less attractive, as grant funding is required in order to reduce viability gaps. An update on our work to target empty and vacant properties was provided to the Place and Corporate Scrutiny Committee in December, and Cabinet had previously confirmed that the commitment to tackling this issue through the allocation of a budget to support officers in their work. We have seen some positive progress, including the former TJ's building, and a number of other properties are also subject to formal action. Importantly, we have also seen an increase in footfall in the city centre over the last 12 months, with footfall up by 2.6% compared to 2023. The recent Welsh Government Transforming Towns funding, which you mentioned, the opportunity was for loan funding only. In this particular round of funding, we did not receive any requests for applications for loan funding, but we have received requests for grant funding. But as a business owner yourself, I wouldn't, I'm sure the Council wouldn't want to disclose sensitive information at the moment. However, I can say that since 2018, Newport City Council has received more than £20 million from the Welsh Government's regeneration funds, including the Transforming Towns programme. Newport City Council has therefore been allocated a significant proportion of the funding that has so far been made available for the programme across the whole of Wales. We will continue to support landowners and property owners to access the most suitable forms of funding to deliver positive improvements across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question? No. Thank you very much. Right, that concludes the business set out on the agenda. The date for the next council meeting is February the 25th, 2025. I declare the meeting